Right, we are back. So, following on from my Ventura Mark I video, we're now moving on to the Mark II model, which is the Hudson bomber in RAF service. We're going to follow a similar painting system as we did on the Mark I Ventura, except obviously it is Tamiya Skies, that's XF21 underside, with dark earth, which is XF, or flat earth, which is XF52, and then we've got dark green 2 RAF, which is XF81. So that's our three base colors. Now we're probably going to modulate them a little bit as well, just to add a bit more interest into the kit. But as with the Ventura Mark I, I'm going to paint the lightest color first, which will be the 21, XF21, followed by the flat earth, and then with the dark green last. So I have got my Galeri Mobius 0.2 airbrush primed up, ready to go. To get tighter detail, I do tend to take the crown cap off, set it to one side, and I'm careful I don't lose it. A little bit of a spray, nice tight pattern. Paint's mixed at least 50-50. This one might actually be more like 60-40 thinners to paint, so it should flow quite nicely. And we'll just pick a spot and we'll start the marbling process exactly the same as we did for the Ventura Mark I. As you can see, we're getting quite a nice tight spray pattern, and we're following the panel lines, so this will help to give you obviously pre-shading, but it will also help to give you definition to each individual panel. I'm probably spraying at about 18 psi, there and thereabouts, certainly between 15 and 20, and there is the MAC valve on the front of the airbrush here that I can use to adjust the pressure if I choose to do so. So picking out the individual inspection hatches, just putting some solid colour on them so they stand out a bit brighter. There's 3 of them on each wing, I think, if I remember rightly. Certainly 3 here anyway. And on to the next panel. Now, I've had quite a lot of comments about the Galeri airbrush. Full disclosure, I have been sent these airbrushes from Galeri to put on an extended test, and so far I have been thoroughly impressed with the airbrush. As you can see, it is spraying down an exceedingly tight line when the paints are thin properly. It's not too heavy, the action is very consistent. Paint delivery is consistent. Cleaning and maintenance is very, very easy. So I have certainly been recommending them to people that have asked me my opinion on them. As always, I suppose you have to give the caveat that it's down to personal preference. But certainly since before Christmas time, these are the only airbrushes I've been using. And I have some very nice airbrushes from other manufacturers, such as Harder and Steenbeck and DeVilbiss, and even a Badger. But I really do quite like these airbrushes. I will be feeding back to Galeri just with a couple of ideas, things they might want to think about changing or adapting, make things a little easier, improve the product. And they seem to be quite open to any suggestions. So I'd say if anybody has an airbrush, even if they like the way it works or have any ideas about how it could be improved, then just give the guys at Galeri a shout and they'll listen to you, and you never know, your ideas and improvements may well be incorporated into another product. So again, there we go, we can see the marbling effect that we've been going for. I'm going to do the whole aircraft, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the next paint layers to get that nice weathered effect on the underside of this aircraft. So we'll be back in about 5 or 10 minutes. Right, so been all over the underside, and we've got the first marble coat down. I've just sprayed a straight coat, so you can see the difference between an ordinary full cover coat on the drop tanks compared to the marble coat. We've also done the Bombay doors and the wheel well doors. So the next step after this is to spray the actual cover coat, and as before I've put the crown cap back on, spraying at the same pressure, but the distance is further away now. We're probably about 3 to 4 inches away from the surface of the model, so we get a nice spread of paint, and we just walk it across the surface. Keep the coats nice and even. That's all we want, is an even coverage. There we go. Now, I was noticed it was spotting there a little bit, so I've probably got a bit of paint build up in the crown cap. So we can just remove that again, and we'll carry on. Now, when we're painting around the engine nacelles, we want to try and get the angle so that the paint will meet the edge, but not blow too much into the wheel well. You can see it's laying down really nicely, and as I said before in the last video, Tamiya acrylics mixed with X20A are really nice paints. They're reliable, they paint beautifully through an airbrush when they're mixed about 50-50. There's a good colour range. It may be a little limited compared to some colours, you know, like Vallejo or paints by MiG or AK, where they've got the specific colour ranges, whereas Tamiya are a bit more generic, unless of course you're looking for Imperial Japanese colours. They're very good. They're very good selection of those. So we're just literally just painting, and we're getting a nice even coverage over the marble coat we put down first, and then basically as soon as the paint starts, the marble coat starts disappearing in the top coat, pull away and let it dry off, and then obviously you'll watch the marble coat reappear. Make sure we get all the leading edges and trailing edges. So the second paint layer goes down an awful lot more quickly than the first. Let's just run out. So it's quite a small colour cup, and you can see we've painted an awful lot of the aircraft with not a lot of paint. So it's quite an economical way of painting as well. But hopefully you can see as the colour is drying back, we're starting to get that marble textured finish coming through. What we might do is mix in a little bit of white into the remaining paint in the cup once we've got the first colour down, and then go back in and put some highlights back in. So what we really want at this point in the painting process is to block in the colour. So get it all on the aircraft, and then we can see what we're left with and how we want to make adjustments to that colour to get it to our taste when it comes to pre-shading, modelling, weathering, however you want to call it. Again, make sure we get the leading edges, trailing edges, and then there we go. That is the whole underside painted. A little touch up on the wing here, just to knock back that pre-shading a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that. Right, I've got the wheel well doors to do, and the Bombay doors, and then we'll look at maybe doing a little bit of highlighting by mixing the paint with some white and lighten the colour and just dance over the centre of the panels. Okay, so everything's painted. You can see the Bombay doors. I've got a nice coat on them. They're just drying up. And both sets of wheel well doors now have got a nice coat on them, interior green and sky colour. Right, so we've got a little bit left in the colour cup. What I'm going to do is get some XF2 flat white. This paint has been pre-thinned, and it is particularly thin. I'll give it a quick stir up. Make sure all the pigment's up through the paint, giving it a good shake, and you want to put about a brush, so just 2 brushfuls, that's it. That's all it needs. White's a very strong paint. Give it a mix in the colour cup. I've just splashed all over the model, so you'll be able to see some of the paint splashes and how that they are varied. I'll give them a pretty dab just to blend them in a bit. Okay, right, so just blow through the original colour, and we're getting the lightened colour coming through. And again, you can leave the crown cap on for this, and we're just going to paint a varied pattern, random as you like, but just focusing on the centers of the panels. There you go. You should be able to see that that is just lifting that colour ever so slightly. Okay, try and avoid the panel lines. You can start at the front of the panel if you like and work your way towards the wing end. Just to give you that sort of more 3D effect. And just remember that this is all going to get toned down when we do the weathering. But it's just to add a little bit extra dimension to the paint. So there you go, you can see the side that we've worked with and the other side and how different that is. It's a thin coat of paint, so you can still see the mottling through it. It just lifts that paint that little bit more. There we go. So I'm going to paint it here. And the front of the wing. There we go. Oh, a couple of panels here. And there we go. So there's a wing that has been highlighted, and there's just the marbling and second coat. So it's quite a difference. But as you can see, we're doing this real time, and it really takes no time. It does take a bit of practice, but if you're building plenty of models, then you get time to practice. The main thing with this is making sure the paint is well thinned so it goes down where you want it to go down, and that you are just comfortable with freehand paintwork. So I've obviously been painting for a lot of years, and I am quite comfortable in freehanding. You can mask to do this. But it's really down to interpretation of what you want to get out of the model. But you can see how just two brushfuls of white really faded out and washed out the paint. And there is one more trick up our sleeve that we can do just to unify the colours. You can certainly see as I'm doing this, I'm not being overly precious. Now, one thing to remember is when you've, like here when we've put a hard edge in here to be worn at the front, follow that here when we put it through at the front, follow it through the rest of the model so you keep your orientation the same. So if we look at these lines here, we can put in a hard and then feather it back, focusing on the roll of the roll of the fuselage. And then we'll go to this next panel, same again. feather it back, focusing the majority of the highlight on the front of the panel. And then that keeps it all roughly the same and keeps your continuity of the build. Tail, we're just going to put them into the centre of the panels, and again there's little bits of the marbling that's looking a little stark. This is just a means of adding the highlights, but also it just tones down that starkness a little bit. Right, so we got this way, we're thinking, crikey, that's really stark. No, it's not too bad. I like the contrast, but what we can do to calm it all down is if we pull the airbrush right back, so we're looking at about 12 to 300, well 12 inches or 300 mil away from the surface, and then just give it a dust coat right from far, far away. And what that does is help just to unify the whole surface, and it lifts some of the darkness. Don't overdo it or you'll kill it all, but just pull it back from a distance, put a misty coat over it, and that just softens it all down and brings it all together. And I'm actually really happy with how that's looking now. Lots of tonal variation, a little bit of symmetry, and a worn look, because these aircraft will have been worn. They're all Coastal Command aircraft, so they were flying in not the best of conditions. Right, same goes with the Bombays. So we'll just dot it down the Bombay. We'll focus on the high strip there down the centre, and then again here and here. And last but not least, we'll look at the wheel well doors. So it's a really quick and easy way of painting. A very, very quick and easy way. Get the unifying spray. Very, very quick and easy way of getting a very different mottled tonal variation air surface. Right, I think I'm quite happy with that. So we've got the paint finish. Well, I've got the paint finish I'm happy with on the bottom. So the next thing to do is consider how we're going to get the camouflage colours on the top. I'll likely want to spray it freehand, because that's how I prefer to do my colours, and then use masks and templates to tidy up the camo if I think it needs a sharper edge. What we will need to do though is put masking on the demarcation line between the sky underside and the camouflage top surfaces, and before I do that, just to help seal this paint in, I'm going to lay down a coat of semi-gloss varnish just to seal it in, to give it a bit of protection before we move on. So we'll probably just leave the video here for now. And then we'll come back once it's masked to look at tackling the camouflage colours on the top coat. Thanks for watching, guys. If there's any questions or comments, then as always, feel free to pop them down below, and we'll see you in the next video.